Stay tuned to see how I do this delicious sweet potato cobbler. This recipe consists of some pecans. I have 4 sweet potatoes. I also have a store-bought pie crust here. I have white sugar. I have some butter. I have some minced ginger as well as nutmeg inside of that bowl there. I have some vanilla. I have some cinnamon. I have some maple syrup, some brown sugar, and I also have a big thing of butter because what is not pictured is some flour. I am going to make a crumble that's going to go on top of the sweet potato cobbler, and it is going to give that cobbler a nice crunch on top once we bake it in the oven. But I'm going to show you how we're going to piece this all together, and I'm going to also list the ingredients in the screen so that way you can pause it and write it down when you get a chance. So we're going to start off by washing off the potatoes, peeling them, and then we're going to slice these up into 1/4-inch pieces. And when we quarter them up like this, we're going to place them into some salted water, just lightly salted water, not too much. And we're going to cook these for about a good 10 to 12 minutes. We're going to let them come to a nice boil. We don't want them to be fully cooked because they're going to finish cooking in the oven when we make our cobbler. So while that is coming to a boil, we're going to chop up our pecans, as you see I'm getting ready to do here, and we're just going to chop them up really fine. We want these to be as fine as possible. You can place these inside of a food processor and chop them up, or you can buy them already chopped, but I didn't feel like pulling out all those extra utensils and getting it done, so I decided to do it by hand. So once you chop up your pecans, your potatoes should look something like this, and that is how they are looking, and they were just about done. I think that 10 to 12 minutes pretty much gave it almost all the way done. Not quite. I'm taking that one store-bought pie sheet and I'm putting that crust inside of the pan here, and of course it is going to shrink down some once it goes into the oven because I'm going to pre-bake this pie crust here, and I'm going to bake it in the oven for about a good 10 minutes. I don't want my crust to be wet at the bottom, so I always like to pre-bake my pie crust when I get it from the store when I'm too lazy to make my own. Once you get your pie crust the way you want inside of your pan, you place it in the oven. I would poke holes in it, but the sweet potatoes are gonna push them down some. I was really lazy about this, as you can see. I'm gonna place it in the oven on 350, and I'm just gonna let it bake for about 10 minutes. And while it is baking, I'm going to get that nice delicious syrup going. So we're gonna take that butter and place it inside of the pot there, and I'm going to let this all cook on medium heat. So we have our butter. We're gonna also add our brown sugar, and we're going to pretty much add all of those ingredients that I had sitting to the side. This is our maple syrup here. That maple syrup is going to give it such a delicious flavor, I tell you. Ooh, it's going to give it so much flavor to that sweet potatoes. Something about the brown sugar and the maple syrup just gave it a nice rich flavor. That's our brown sugar, and then we're adding that minced ginger and that nutmeg. Not a lot. I'm only using like about 1/4 teaspoon of that minced ginger, but it's going to give it that little subtle spice to it. And of course, the nutmeg, those two together is so delicious when it comes to sweet potatoes. Of course, there's the sugar. I decided not to use the whole cup of sugar because of that maple syrup and the brown sugar, but just enough. And I did use salted butter, so that is going to help balance out some of that sweetness. And of course, I'm going to have that cinnamon that's going to be added and the vanilla. And we're just going to kind of break that all down and let that cook together really well. And once we get that all cooked, and it's going to melt all of that together, and you just smell that cinnamon, that sugar, the maple syrup. I mean, my whole house was smelling so good. It was smelling like Thanksgiving. I mean, something about that cinnamon and that maple, it just brought back so many memories of when my mom used to cook and getting ready for the holidays when I was growing up. And the smells. I mean, it was just so, I can't explain it. Those fragrances is just, that aroma is so delicious. So once you get those all inside of your pot and you get it all melted, then we're going to work on our crust. So this is the crumble we're going to have on top of our cobbler. So we have our flour here, and that is some cold butter. And then we're going to also add our pecans and the sugar. Now I didn't add quite all of that flour because I wasn't for sure how much of it was going to actually be needed, but I did add all of that sugar, and I did add all of the pecans that were chopped. And I'm just using my hand. I'm going to just break that down. If you want, you can use a fork, or you could use a fruit processor and then break that all up as if you were going to make it like a pie crust that you would use. But I just broke it and used my hands. I was just really being lazy, but you want to get that as mealy, have a nice mealy type consistency. And once you break it down, it'll look something like that. And then I took my pie crust out the oven, and everything was ready to be put together. There is our melted brown sugar mixture and our syrup. So I just started placing the partially cooked sweet potato circles inside of the pie crust there. And the pie crust did cool down a little bit. So once you place your potatoes inside of the crust, then we go ahead and we pour our syrup inside. And you want to pour the syrup just enough. I wasn't for sure if I was going to need to hold the whole portion, but you want it just enough to not necessarily cover all of the potatoes, but come up, because the syrup is going to be kind of loose in there. But you pour it just enough. You kind of eyeball it, and you can pour it to according how much you think you want. I poured most of it, but I did leave a little bit out of the pot. But it was enough to cover all of the potatoes, and at the bottom and at the top. Once I got my syrup in there, then I added my crumble topping. This is what's going to give that nice finale to this pie. Or to the cobbler. You want to start crumbling it all on top. And once you place all your crumbles on top of your cobbler, you're going to allow this pie to bake in the oven on 350 degrees for 35 minutes. And then after 35 minutes, you're going to put it on broil on high for an additional 5 minutes, and it's going to give it a nice little toasty top. But you want to keep an eye on it during that 5-minute session when it's on broil, because you don't want it to go on or be on too long. And this is what it's going to look like when you take it out of the oven. Look at it, all nice and bubbly. And it don't look quite appealing, but man, it is so amazing. I mean, look at that syrup. Look at that. And it smells so good. My whole house. And that little crust on top, yeah, that's the part you're looking for. Listen to this. That is the crunch that you want to hear on top of your pie, especially after you put it on broil. You want to let your cobbler sit for about a good 5 minutes, maybe 10, to let that syrup kind of cool down some, because you don't want to burn the roof of your mouth, because that syrup, from that brown sugar and maple is going to be quite hot, but you still want to serve it a little bit warm. But look at that deliciousness. Oh, look at that cobbler. Look at those sweet potatoes, that crust. Everything is perfect. Get some of that juices on there. Oh, and then you want to serve this either with some whipped cream or my favorite, some ice cream, vanilla ice cream, or some of that delicious good old butter pecan ice cream. Yes, that would be even better. So if you like this recipe and if you think you can use this delicious sweet potato cobbler as a dessert for Thanksgiving, please click like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Let me know if this is something you want to try for your family. Thank you for watching. God bless, and I hope you all have a great and safe Thanksgiving holiday. Stay tuned for more recipes. And thank you to all of my new subscribers and to all of my subscribers that have been following me for all this time. I really appreciate the love. Have a great one. God bless.